Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:03, and we always begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've notified my fellow board members and members of the administration that I'm going to resign at the beginning of our meeting tonight, and so that's what I'm going to do. I resign from the Wethersfield School Board effective immediately.
I think that is really effective immediately. So what would happen now without a chair?
Okay, I guess I have to take over the meeting as
yeah, you would, and you could do one of two things. You could just stay.
Do we need to accept Sean's resignation?
Yeah, there needs to be a motion to accept, and then the other thing too is you can keep going as vice chair, and then when you get a new member to replace Sean, you could then vote for a new chair. Or you could take that vote tonight if you wanted to, but it's really up to you. But the first thing should be to accept his resignation.
Okay.
Can I make a motion that we accept Sean Whalen's resignation with regret?
Do you have any seconds?
I'll second that.
Kristen. Seconded.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that passed unanimously. I didn't hear any nays. Okay, the next thing up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting on October 13th, 2020. Can I get a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved. This is Robin.
Robin, so moved.
Second?
Markle, second.
Will we have an opportunity to make corrections?
Yeah, does anyone have any corrections?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Jean Marie.
First off, the date is incorrect. It says October 8th.
Oops,
And
I
the
didn't
date
even notice that. Good catch.
it's October 13th.
Okay.
Second, under financial updates, 1, 2, 3, it's the third paragraph down in the middle. It said that Jean Marie said we need a few more special ed teachers. No, we don't. We just have our 3, but we did need more special education paraprofessionals.
Okay. So you want to change teachers to paraprofessionals?
Yes, special ed paraprofessionals.
Anne Marie, I just noticed, I don't think Rebecca is here tonight, is she?
Oh.
No, so that means that somebody's going to have to scratch minutes.
Yeah, that would be me, right?
Yeah. Kristen, you don't mind doing it?
Nope. Hold on, let me get it.
She minds. She's going to do it anyway. That's good. So can you read? I can also send you the recording, Kristen, if you want. Just you
Okay.
don't miss.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Are there any other changes or amendments? So then, do we just vote then, David?
Yeah, then you just say all in favor of approving.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
I think
Aye.
everybody's saying aye. And then
Aye.
opposed? Doesn't look like anybody's opposed, so we've done that.
Okay. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
I think we'll have to, I'm looking at the agenda now. I think, wait a minute, let me find it. Yeah, there it is. I think we're going to have to, no, I see it. Okay, that's on there. We're going to have to appoint the BAC, but we're also going to have to appoint somebody from this board to be on the negotiations committee because Sean was on that committee, and we'll also need to.
Yeah, I think we need an executive session to.
Yeah, we
determine-
could talk about that in executive session, sure.
So I'd like to add an executive session in at the end to talk about the board and what we're going to do about Sean's leaving and filling in his missing seats that he had.
Yeah, plus we can give an update on negotiations too while we're in executive session.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to public participation. Do we have anyone here that wants to speak?
Just
I'm
put
not
your
hearing
name-
anyone.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anybody. If you want to just give it a second, but it looks like no.
Okay. Items for discussion, the principal search committee update. Who's going to give that? Your mic's off, David.
Is Meredith on the line? I wanted one of the either or Jessica. Jessica, there's Jessica. Yeah.
I'm on.
Do you want to just give a quick update as to where we are?
Yeah, sure. So we've been meeting. We have our second meeting with the whole committee Thursday. We've sort of created our mission statement to have that reviewed in our meeting. List of questions and sort of have decided a game plan and timeline of going forward of candidate reviewed questions and then sort of interview process.
Yeah, the executive board is Meredith, and Jessica is also on the executive board, and Nicole. I don't see her tonight, but so we've, that committee's been very instrumental in moving the process forward. We're going to start looking at resumes probably over the weekend. We've got right now 22 applications. They may not all make that first cut because I noticed a couple of them today were not licensable. They have to be able to get a principal's license in Vermont, but we're still going to have, I think, between 20 and 30 resumes. So that's good news. I think that's it.
Trying to unmute myself, sorry. Okay, the next item is the WSC-SU strategic plan discussion. I guess that's Angie. Or you're muted, David.
Yeah, I can bring it up on the screen if you want, Angie, or you can, or we don't need to bring it up. I mean, it's really up to, if you want to talk people through it, that would be great.
Yes, can I have a second just to think?
Yeah,
So I guess
Also,
the
Angie,
board chairs met last, what was it, 2 weeks ago, David, with Mike Nicholson. We talked about it, and the whole idea of sharing the plan with the rest of the board members was to give the board members an opportunity to look at the plan, to see if there were any questions that you had, and the board chair's function was to share that out. I don't know if it was, I mean, I know we've shared it in the past, but did you guys even have a chance to look at it? So Anne Marie did. Robin did not. Mark did not. And Kristen did. So the idea is that this is a document that we will live with for the next 3, 5, 7 years, depending on what the time frame is. And I think it's important that you are able to be behind it and feel like it is that you're familiar with it and that you can support it. And so we went through the process, and so I guess I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of stunned by Sean's resignation. So I'm just like, oh, and that was part of this process. So sorry, I'm not being very articulate, but it's just, what kind of discussion can we have, Dave? I mean, David, if Robin and Mark haven't had an opportunity to look at it yet.
Yeah, it did go out. Okay? I wanted to make sure my mic was on. Yeah, it did go out with the packet. I mean, we've still got time to look at it. In the end, it's most important that those members of the supervisory union board look at it. I would say if there's anything, I mean, this represents about a year and a half's worth of work. I mean, if you recall, we had, anywhere from, 60 to, it ranged from 40 to 60 community members from all 4 towns who participated in the early stages of this. And then that got to phase 2, which was probably dropped to about 30 participants. And then the final group, there was a writing team. Angie chaired the writing team with Mike, and the writing team is the team that put the final draft of the strategies together. Most of the strategies are initiatives that I think represent what that committee felt were priorities. And the goals are pretty simple, right? As a matter of fact, I would think all of the notes and strategies, I mean, that's kind of getting into the weeds. I think for board members and SU board members to look at those goals are critical, and to maybe look at those objectives would be good. The goals come under headings of student success, culture, and I kind of bridge culture and climate, you're right, and how people are feeling treated, and sort of that general sense of safety and health. Student wellness and engagement was goal 3, and that's been a big part of our mission over the last several years. And we've had that wellness team present to us several times, and we want to keep that work going. And then goal 4 was information and communication. We think that a lot of times we're building good protocols at the SU level. We're building good relationships at the board levels, but sometimes that communication doesn't trickle out to our communities. So there was a real emphasis on getting better at communicating with our general community, our parents, and I know that happens certainly at the building level, but not always necessarily at the strategic systems level. And that's it. So what I would suggest is Anne Marie's on the SU board. Mark is on the SU board. And we're going to have to appoint another SU board member later on, because you need to have 3 members represent Wethersfield. I would say for those who haven't had a chance to read it, to read it, if there's any thoughts or comments or suggestions, you should relay those to either Mark or Anne Marie as SU board members. And then we're meeting on the 23rd, and we're dedicating a good part of that meeting to this strategic plan. And that doesn't mean that other board members can't attend. Kristen, Robin, I'll invite everybody to that board meeting, since it is about this plan. And I think it's important, as Angie said, because this will guide our work for the next 3 to 5 years, if not longer. And so anyhow, if there aren't any questions, I think that's probably the easiest way to deal with this. Certainly we'll take questions tonight if you want to.
I do. I just want to highlight a few things in the plan, because we were at Mount Scottney School District board meeting last night. So I think that those questions might help you guys as well. In goal 3 and 4, there are, sorry, I'm trying to scroll the screen, and I don't know, it's not my screen. In goal 3, there is right here under the objective number 1 is to fill a leadership role for student wellness and engagement. And then there are 2 more roles in goal 4, someone to manage communications for the across the supervisory union, between the schools and also with our community, and a data leader, someone to help pull together the data and use the data from a variety of sources so that we're making database decisions. These are not necessarily new roles. when the writing team was creating them, we were thinking about how the redesign of education may open up space in roles that already exist to just what do you call it? Absorb those duties of those leaders. So it might be just taking an existing role and changing the job description to include parts of those roles. The other thing that I want to highlight, and I can't remember what strategy it's under, is that we do have a strategy for a curriculum audit. And one of the questions, one of the board members was asking about, well, it seems like that would be something that our racial anti-racism task force would be interested in doing. And absolutely, that's what we were thinking about. We knew that we would be forming a task force. We were writing this end of June into July and early August, and we knew that a task force, the board had already stated that they wanted to put together an anti-racism task force. And even last fall, David is as part of his equity network work, and what we were talking about a curriculum audit anyway and doing that sort of thing. So those are the things that I just wanted to mention that came up in that board meeting. Oh, the other thing that came up was how can we take this plan and kind of take it out of EduSpeak and put it more in lay terms, so that, and it's a hefty document. There's a lot of details, and that's really, and if we want this to be a public facing document, how can we simplify it, make it more straightforward? And if you want to get to the level of detail, of course you can read the whole plan, but a simplified version of this may be helpful for our communities, our teachers, our staff. Also, I think just to keep us, remind us of what our strategic plan is.
Yeah, I think that simplification is going to be critical before we communicate it out to the public. There was some talk too that we might want to do, each district might want to do a forum where we just sort of let folks know without a lot of gobbledygook and acronyms, you know, what we're really trying to accomplish. I mean, I think a lot of the plan too is very consistent with some of the work that the staff, and they've been working really hard in these pods and getting kids into, you know, really good space, place-based education, getting kids outside, you know, doing the integrated development work. And it's been a work in progress, but this plan is very consistent with all of that. So I would say on the 23rd, if people want to be there and participate. If not, you want to get your questions to your SU representatives, that would be good. And again, sometimes when a document is put together by that many people, you know, it doesn't represent the need for a ton of change. But certainly if there's something you think we're missing or something that's in there that shouldn't be, you know, you should let somebody know that. And I think that's good, Anne, unless you want to do something else.
No, that sounds good. So our next item is the FY22 budget. I don't know who's going to be taking the lead on that.
Yeah, who's presenting? Jean, you going to present?
Yes, I'm going to present, and Ed's got the entire budget to give you bottom line, but I'll do the educational piece. And my kitty cats are giving me a hard time. They're laying on my notebooks, and so I'm struggling a little here. So, BJ, I know you're there. If you wouldn't mind pulling up the November 2nd memorandum to the board. Thank you. And if you can make that big enough so folks could see, that's great. I will tell you that I certainly can send a copy of this and Plan B to anybody here tonight. My faculty and staff have already seen it, But if there's parents or interested community folks, you shoot me an email and I'll make sure you get your own copy of this. There isn't anything in this document that you shouldn't be able to see. So I want to start by saying that it was very important to me, and in particular because the superintendent asked all principals to be really careful in this budget year, because we really don't know what's going to happen. We don't know about the COVID funds. We don't know about the CLA. We don't know about so many, the Vermont Education Fund. So when BJ and I met with Ed back on October 26th, we actually prepared a budget. Now, this would be our part of the budget. The budget clearly is bigger than just our part. But we made a point of coming in 47,700, a little bit more than that, under what we did last year. And we did that purposefully because you're going to see when Ed presents tonight, the budget's up 7%. So I think that will give you, and Ed's going to give you a real clear explanation of what that entails. But the point I'm making is that the part that we control at the K-8 level is minuscule compared to tuition, for example, teacher's salary, that's negotiated. Insurance, those are things outside of our control. But the little bit that BJ and I could control, we did do zero-based budgeting. And so we really looked at the bare minimum of what we needed. And that brought us in close to 48,000 under what we recommended last year. So even though you're going to look at the budget and say that's not level funded, from our perspective, we were under, I think it was like 0.78%. So we really tried to do our best to be good soldiers in that regard. Now, if you notice, we have 237 students anticipated for next year. We have a boom in that kindergarten class. On the books, we have 33 kids, 33. Now, you know, one year I had 17 on the books. On the first day of school, 28 kids showed up. So I'm a little nervous what's going to happen, because right now you've got 33 on the books. So we'll see how many show up next fall. We had to take into consideration all of the remote kids and the home study kids. A lot of our kids that didn't come back this year is because of the pandemic. Many of them have indicated to Angela and I that they will be returning in January. So they have a property right to be educated. And I can't predict if we'll be in a pandemic in the fall. I can't predict if we'll be offering a remote choice. So I had to include all kids. So if you look at those numbers, you'll see that we've got some pretty big class sizes. I'm going to talk with you in a minute about the local policy, the WSESU policy on class size, as well as school quality standards. So with the exception of 7th and 8th grade, we are absolutely in compliance, even with these huge numbers. And maybe all those kids won't return, but it would be prudent of us to plan for that. So BJ, if you want to scroll down just a little bit. Actually, we can probably go right to the next page. So one of the things, you know, when you look at a budget, you should be looking at it from a large perspective. And I do have to say to you, I am not familiar, I'm more familiar with e-finance because it's the second year I've worked with it. But I will tell you that when I built this budget with Ed, David, and BJ last October, that was the FY21 budget. I was very confused by the way e-finance runs. So I kept saying to BJ, I'll be glad to look at the year-end balance. I'll be glad to be able to itemize what we spent, actual expenditures. Well, you and I both know we stopped in March. So the budget that I had in FY21, I couldn't roll it over into FY22 because it's not an actual budget. We don't really, we know, for example, that we didn't we stopped the drama production. We know, for example, that sports stopped. So, there were so many variables. So we had to really start from scratch to look at this budget line by line. I wanted to mention to you that we did a cost comparison for folks that left and folks that we hired. And that's important to note because I want you to know that there was a savings of $35,000. And we didn't use names, but you can tell if you look in the left-hand column what the position was, what the salary was, and then what we're paying this year and what the difference is. Now, we did have an additional expense, and that was the LNA, who is a godsend. And my nurse begged me to put her in the budget for FY22. And believe me, we've all worked so hard. It's just incredible what we've been able to do to keep kids safe. But that doesn't happen on a dime. It's been really hard work. Long hours, weekend work, lots of committee work. And our nurse is exhausted. She rushed this week to get all the hearing tests in because, if you saw the governor today, he declared our numbers are up. And, red is all around us. And he closed the state today. He doesn't want anybody coming into Vermont or leaving to go out unless it's essential travel. So there's a lot of things going on. We don't know what's going to happen. But the nurse wanted to get as much assessment as she could get in. If she didn't have the LNA, she couldn't do those kinds of things. So I want you to know we did build it in next year's budget. And let's go to BJ down a little more. Yeah, I'm really sad about this, but this is a savings from last year. Well, actually, it's going to be in this year's budget. So we couldn't have 4 Winds this year. We signed a contract with them. We paid $3,000. The service we get in return is immeasurable. That is the best program I've ever seen. But we can't have volunteers in the building. We had stipends that we saved. We can't do GOB, can't do national GOB, can't do the spelling test, can't do the spelling bees. We have 2. Can't do student council, can't do drama. So because of all that, we saved $11,100 in there. We can't do field trips. So we automatically saved $5,000. And as you know, we couldn't get a world language teacher this year. We had one, and I don't blame her. She has a little boy at home, and she didn't feel safe. So we actually saved that amount of money, as well as $500 in supplies. And BJ, if you would move that down just a little more. BJ is so wonderful. Thank you. So what you're looking at right now is whenever you look at numbers and class size, you have to look at what your policies say. So the SU policy is the same as the WS policy, and it talks about grade clusters. So let's look at grade 2. So grade 2, the policy says that the minimum average can be 15. The optimum is 15 to 18. Well, if you look at, and you go back to the first page, I have 82 kids next year projected in K2. If you divide that by 5 teachers, that's 16 students. We're in compliance. And that's important for you to know. I'm not sharing budget C. As you recall in the last meeting, Mark Youngling asked if I would prepare the budget and then do a proposed B, in other words, cuts that wouldn't devastate us, but then a C if the budget went down. I'd like to think in positive terms. I do not want to share Plan C. I actually can't support Plan C at this juncture if the budget went down in March. And I did go back and look at the numbers. I don't have them. Actually, I do have them in my budget book. So I'm using the old memory. And I'm going to guess last year, I want to say we passed BJ 17 votes. The year before, maybe 25. The year before that, maybe 30. Really low numbers. which scare me. That really scares me because some of those years we brought the budget, we were lower than level funding. It was amazing that we barely passed. So I think Mark's advice was right on in terms of look ahead. I don't want to share it. I didn't share it with teachers. I don't want people frightened. If the budget goes down, you will have a plan and we'll meet on it. We'll talk about it. I'm not going to share it tonight. The board does have copies of that. So if you look at this chart, 3 and 4 is in compliance, 5 and 6 is in compliance, 7 and 8 says that the optimum for 7 and 8 is 15 to 22, and we are anticipating 25. So we're only 3 above the optimum numbers. And remember, whenever you're looking at numbers for the next year, there's a mathematical factor that we can use called, it's using attrition and mortality. So it's quite possible that we could have an average of 17 kids because we don't know how many are going to return in 7th and 8th grade. So if you'd scroll down, BJ. The staff, the cat and I are sharing space here. So you're looking at school quality standards. It's section 2121.2. And if you'll see bolded, it says classes in K through 3 when taken together shall average less than 20 students per teacher. In grades 4 through 12 when taken together shall average fewer than 25 per teacher. So we'll scroll down and you'll see those averages based on the figures, and it's right under findings. So based on the FY22 student teacher ratio, we are in compliance with class size for K-8 based on school quality standards. And if you look, K-3, I'm going to have 106 students projected. You divide that by 7 teachers, and it's 15 kids. For 4 through 8, we don't go to 12th grade. 4 through 8 is 131 kids divided by 7 teachers, gives us 19. The state says we can have 25. So again, this is an average. So we did not add a teacher. And I did that purposefully because I didn't add an assistant principal either. And that's something we talked about last year. 44 years in, I sleep, drink, eat education. Hopefully you're going to get a new principal that has a life outside of school. My kids are grown, I'm unmarried, and my 2 cats don't care what time I come home. So you've had the benefit of a principal who really has been devoted to your school, but that's not the norm. You want to get probably a younger, maybe a family person who's going to have a balance in their life. And I did say to you last year that I would add an assistant principal to this budget, but I couldn't because of COVID, because of the uncertainty of our funding. I know that there's concern about people not being able to pay their taxes. All of this came into play. I didn't build an assistant principal, and we're still up 7%, people. So as hard as we might try, we've done the best that we can do, and we've really made cuts. Not only have we made almost 48,000 in cuts at the local level, BJ and I. If you'll go to Part B, BJ, Plan B for cuts, I am recommending if the board, and again, there's a whole process that comes with budget. You're going to have a BAC committee. I'll be meeting with them, BJ will, Ed will be meeting with them. They'll ask their questions. And it's quite possible that they won't want to make these cuts. But in following what the board asked me to do, I wanted you to know that we thought very deeply, both at the big picture level, but also looking at it through a microscopic lens. And we do have recommendations. I'm not recommending them tonight. I think tonight we need to listen to Ed's presentation BJ and I have looked that budget over very closely. I think Ed's done a remarkable job getting that ready for you tonight. So I think we need to look at that and think about it. But if the board were to come back or the BAC were to come back and say, look, we can't afford 7%. And by the way, we're shooting 7%. We don't know what it's going to be because there's so many pieces to this formula that come in the third week in December that will really give us a bottom line. But we're now basing this from the FY21, what we anticipated spending and how we built our budget for FY22. And that is frankly up. I think it's like 6.9 maybe. So if you were to discuss cuts with us, we are ready to propose that we could cut our field trip budget in half. We could cut the foreign language program. I have such trepidation saying that to you, but we've done it this year without it. And we're in a pandemic. And, you know, I think all bets are off. We have to really think about health and safety comes to my mind. We've spent a lot of money on PPE this year. Best expenditures. We've made sure we have top of the line air filters. We've made sure we have green cleaning products. Jim Taft and his crew have been remarkable and they deserve a round of applause. They have done an incredible job making sure that our school is very safe and healthy. And we've had to put money in that. We've had to buy 14 radios so that we can communicate because our teachers are outside with kids. If there was ever a child that got hurt, we need to know it. So we've had expenditures that were they were unexpected. We don't know if they'll be COVID covered or not. Frankly, I don't care at this point. Keeping kids safe is number one. If in fact we had to cut the foreign language teacher, the savings would be close to $25,000. And if we, you know, you put $3,000 in for library books last year, I think we wouldn't suffer. Everything is so online now. We could save about $1,500 there. I'm not recommending that we cut the We Are Hope program. I think they've been remarkable in supporting kids. They're life coaches for some kids who really rely on them. But here's what I will say. We've got an outstanding social emotional interventionist, Meg Shambo. She's just incredible with kids. And she works with our BCBA, who is Vanessa Perry, and our school nurse. And Melissa Cole is our new guidance counselor. And we are just so impressed with the quality of her work. So you put those four people together, and I'm seeing some amazing things supporting kids. So when BJ and I sat down to look at the big picture, we said, you know, if we had to cut We Are Hope, it's really a little more than this. David pays about a third of it. It's about $9,000 is what David pays, I think through Medicaid or EPSDT. I can't tell you the funding source. And then we built the $18,000 in our budget. So it's not a cheap program, you know, it costs quite a bit, but what we get in return is worth it. If we had to cut, I've got a team that's working to support kids in a way I've never seen it before. So I would tell you we could limp along. So there, the 46,000, if you couple that with the 48,000, I think BJ and I did a pretty great job. And we did run this by faculty, so they're very much aware of this. And I'll tell you, the faculty is highly sensitive to doing the right thing by this community and about families. So I didn't get any opposition. They're tightening their belts. Teachers are buying their own materials. There's a lot of teaching that goes on at 12:30 in the afternoon after those buses leave. And it's because teachers realize that we have to pull together and really go above and beyond the call of duty to do what's right for kids. And I'm super proud of that. And I also want to tell you that BJ worked so hard over this summer, working with Mike Gaudette to reduce our buses from 4 to 3. They're tight. I'm not going to tell you they aren't tight. BJ had to change all the bus routes to make that happen. But again, there's another savings. So I think we've really been prudent, not only this year in our expenditures, but in our preparation for FY22. And I'll field any questions, and if there are none, I get to give it to Ed. Any questions?
I guess I have a comment and a question. I'm interested in what you said about an assistant principal. It's something that I've been thinking about for a couple years. Just seeing the time and effort that you put in and that BJ puts in, and seeing the need for that. And so I am disappointed that you're not recommending that for the kind of Plan A budget. I'd be curious just to know kind of what sort of cost that would add, and I'd also be curious to hear about just what best practices are, what kind of threshold in terms of a student body size is known to need that extra level of leadership.
So school quality standards don't address that in particular, Robin, but they do say, for example, for every 500 students, you need a nurse. For every 500 students, you need a librarian. So, we're looking at about 237 students. I will tell you that I don't think it's a secret that I have 44 years experience and I have 3 degrees. And that's why I make this salary that I make. Believe me, it's earned. And you know that. So I'm saying that my salary's in the budget. The odds of you hiring someone with 44 years and 3 degrees is unlikely. So I'm not going to say there isn't wiggle room there. So if you were to go, and when Ed shows you that budget, if you want to look at what that looks like, that could either be a tremendous savings to you, or you could use that money. And again, this is just the initial presentation. The board is in control. The board and the BAC might say, Jean Marie, built that assistant principal in. And then we would have to go in and look at, my salary is really too high for probably what you're going to hire. And I'm guessing, I'm not a member of the committee. I don't know what your objectives are, but let's say it's pretty substantial. We could take a portion of that, couple it with new money, and you would in fact have an assistant principal. So again, it's doable.
Yeah, I would definitely like to explore that. And I hear what you're saying about looking at it as a savings, but I think that's a dangerous temptation, because I feel like it's the 1 year in which we could add an assistant principal. Once we then re-level set at a lower level because of hiring someone with less experience, it's like we can never go back. And so I feel like it's time to seize the moment and to get that on the books, and to be looking to hire an assistant principal as well.
Okay. Well, I'll look for guidance from both the school board and BAC on that. Thank you. I love to talk about budget. Does anybody else have questions? Oh, there's something in the chat. Let me just check the chat. Oh, Mark, he was cut off. Is he with us, Mark? Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I've been back.
oh, you got kicked off? Okay. So if there's no other budget questions, Ed is ready to prepare. Ed is going to show you the big picture. For example, BJ and I don't do the budget for maintenance. We don't do the budget for transportation. We don't do the budget for food service. And we don't do the budget, obviously, for the WSCSU assessment. So that's why when you see Ed's budget, he does that. So you're going to see the big picture.
So yesterday I sent the budget out to everybody. Had everyone got a chance to look at it?
Yes.
So Robin, you didn't, and Christine, you did. Mark, did you? Okay. So what I was going to suggest is, rather than go through this thing, we go right to the summary, and we ask if there are any questions. I want to emphasize the fact that this is very preliminary. We're still working on the budgets that Jean just outlined. It's still early. We usually don't make a decision on the budget until almost January. So we very much rushed this to get it out because Jean said that the board wanted some numbers, and here they are. If you take a look at the summary, the budget's up by $425,986. I think the areas that you would probably focus on, at least preliminarily, tuition's up $438,271. And that's because it looks like you had a lot of people who didn't go to your school that moved in, and at least what I see as the numbers that I got, how I got my numbers was I went with Lori Brown's list of students that have filled out tuition vouchers, and I got the 8th grade numbers from BJ. So that's up significantly. Jean mentioned transportation. If you take a look at transportation in the summary, it's down $239,000. That's because the SU has now taken that on at the behest of the state. We now have transportation's done out of the SU. So you don't have that in your local budget anymore. Assessments, you also mentioned your assessments are up $187,000, but you saw a savings of $239,000 because we took transportation out. So your assessments are essentially flat. And we had a meeting today, and Mark was there, and we talked about some of the things at the SU that we've done to try to, again, at the behest of the state. One of them was all the copier costs have moved to the SU along with transportation. So again, it's pretty flat. And then, so the big gain in this one is tuition. And I will continue to vet those numbers to make sure the numbers are accurate, but at least in the initial glance, that's where we are. Questions?
Yeah, Ed, how many kids does that translate to, the tuition increase? Just like a number of kids?
Give me 1 second and I can give you that number. I have also increased the health insurance across the board 10% at our insurers. That was their insurer's estimate. We've made some assumptions about the wages, but we still don't have an FY21 contract settled with the teachers, so it's difficult to project what FY22 is when you don't have FY21. So made some assumptions there. Let's see, I have in Weathersfield, I have 112 students. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I have 84 students.
This year or next year?
Well, that's what I'm projecting for next year.
And that's compared to what do we have as a typical kind of baseline?
I have 102 based on, if you look at, and maybe my numbers are wrong, Ed, but on my worksheet.
I'd be willing to guess that they're wrong, Jean, because what we had to do is, you don't have the vouchers anymore at your office.
Right.
We do.
Okay. So what are you thinking? It's more than 102?
Yeah, I just got, I have projecting for next year, I have 84.
84?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be that senior class was well, that's what you do, right? You take the senior class out, you bring the 8th grade up, and then everybody stays.
Yeah, right now I've got 22 in my.
I've got I've got 20 seniors.
That'll
And I've
leave
got
it?
two,
So
yeah.
again, Gene, I can't, all I'm doing is I'm using the vouchers. So when we get the bill, if they don't have a voucher, they don't get paid. So if you've
Makes
got
sense.
other numbers, we can go with your numbers. It's simple as that. But I'm telling you that with the vouchers we've got, this is the count. As far as Robin's question is concerned, I mean, I can tell you what we have as the vouchers.
Right now?
Yeah.
For
I
this
just
year?
have to resort all this data.
Yeah, we can, you know, we can certainly get that information too if we need to, because I know you've always done a pretty good job. BJ has always worked with my administrative assistant, and we get that pretty tight.
I have 101 right now.
This year?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so there must be something wrong, Ed, because if you've got 101 this year and you're projecting
And
80,
20 graduated,
right?
right?
Yeah,
20
are graduating.
22 are moving up, maybe 23. We might be getting
Now,
one more.
20 are graduating, Jane. I will go with my numbers until I see your numbers. So I don't know where you're getting your numbers, and this is the conversation that we have every year about
Sure.
where these numbers come from. So
Yeah, she's talking
I
about her.
told you this was the budget was preliminary, and I told you that we were going to work on the numbers. But all I did was I went to Lori. Lori has the vouchers. I asked BJ for the count. BJ gave me a count, and then I used those numbers.
I think what Jean was saying is she has 22 eighth graders.
I just took the numbers that I got from whatever the numbers were that BJ gave me. I used those numbers.
Okay.
I guess what's confusing, Ed, is that you said there were going to be more students, but actually you're saying like there are 20 less students. So is it the cost like per student that's going up, or what's causing the increase?
That what's causing the increase? Let's see. I got 17 students going to Windsor. I've got, so part of the error that I have here is that I was counting rows and I put in every one of the students in groups. So I put one student for Springfield. So in reality, it's a lot more than that. So let me recalculate, okay?
Yeah, because I think
And it would help if you go to page 2 or 3 of my memo at the bottom. BJ actually did the projection. Now, again, I understand what you're saying. We don't have vouchers, but BJ actually looked at where kids are currently. And so if we get a minute, we can pull that up. And I am projecting 45 kids going to Windsor.
that's total.
Yeah. So for I've got 15 going to Woodstock, 45 to Windsor, 20 to Springfield, 1 to St. J, 1 to Northfield, 1 to HHS, 2 to Hanover, 2 to Hartford, 6 to Hanover, 1 to Green Mountain, 1 to Ball Mountain, 6 to Compass, and 3 to Roberts Stevens High School in Claremont. So I have 102, but like Ed says, sometimes we have to kind of compare those. But BJ is, as you know, David is pretty crackerjack. And
right. So BJ's count for 8th graders was 21. Okay. She gave me 1 Springfield, 17 Windsor, 1 Woodstock, 1 Compass, and 1 Hanover. And then I simply graduated. So that's 21, right?
Yeah.
And then
Then we need the current freshman.
And then I have another 82 that are currently in school. So that is 102.
Oh my,
It matches.
oh my.
Okay, good, but it
Oh my.
I'm glad it
100%.
matches, but it's still gonna make it over $400,000 more, 400,000 more. I just thank the God in heaven that Jean's here, and I don't know what we'll do next year without her. I really don't.
Good luck, Ed. You're gonna miss
Oh,
me.
I know, Jean.
So,
We'll have BJ though.
yeah, well, you'll have BJ, that's for sure.
BJ's raising her
Yes,
hand.
BJ.
All right, BJ, go ahead.
Lori and I do work very closely on these high school tuitions. They're constantly changing. We just had a student move in this week. This is like a moving target for us to keep on top of this. We tried the best that we can with these numbers. The day that I took 8th grade, I know we had 2 students out. And, every day I could give you a new number almost, Ed, and you know that. We've worked so hard on this for the last few years. I believe and have every confidence in Lori Brown that she's right on top of this year. So the numbers are really accurate. We also have part-time students going to like the VOTEC, and those are kind of hard to count. We did have a lot move in, whether they be new students in 9th grade going to a high school or moving into the communities. So this is really an ongoing number.
So there will be students in the list that I have from Lori Brown that didn't graduate from Weathersfield School.
That's correct.
And I suppose, Jean, I give you the list and you could go through it because you've got that photographic memory.
But those are
we can figure it out.
Yeah, because you've got homeschoolers, so that's going to be critical. And by the way, there is a differential in tuition, right? You send a kid to Hanover, it's $23,000 or $24,000 a year. You send a kid to Springfield, and it's more like $17,000 or $18,000 a year. There's a big differential.
No, I'm projecting Springfield's $19,168. That's a 2.5% increase over their tuition of $18,700.
Okay, and Windsor's
in Hanover's case, they don't have. In Hanover's case, they have 3 students, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students that are going to go to Hanover, and their tuition's $21,410.
So $2,000 more per kid.
That's for next year, Ed?
That's what I'm projecting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This year's is $20,888, but they've only got, like I said, 6 students.
So the increase seems to be more so the actual costs that were being charged by the outside schools than the actual number of students going up, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I don't think so, because the tuition would only be up maybe 2 to 3% generally.
How does one student add $400,000 then?
Yeah, no, I think what we need to do to just be certain is Ed's working off of his sheet now at home. We've got a long way to go with this. I think, Lori, BJ, and Ed just need to match up those numbers. We know how many we've got now. I don't know, have we gotten all the bills for first semester, Ed?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another way to do it, is we match it up with the bills. But if we get a bill, say from Springfield, but that student has not submitted a tuition voucher, we don't pay that bill, because the tuition voucher guarantees the residency. And we have a pretty strict policy around residency, and BJ and Lori work hard on that. But I think, we've just thrown a lot of numbers around. I think what we've really got to do, and I understand, BJ, it's a moving target, but I think we've got to get clear on right now who's in our high school 9 through 12, including the vote kids, right? And I think we've got a good preliminary on that, but we just need to verify it. That's all, and find out why that's up almost $400,000, because that would be if you just round
it could be, David, that what you're comparing it to an FY20 budget without actuals, so it could be that the FY20 budget's up, FY21 budget's up.
You mean the 21?
I'm comfortable with these numbers, unless something changes dramatically for Lori, I don't know where else we would check them. I guess we could give them back to Weathersfield and have them check them again. But without the tuition vouchers, maybe they might not know some of these kids. But I'd be willing to do that. I mean, sure. Like I said, it's just the beginning, and the $1,571. It's $51.571 million for this year. May be underscored. I mean, it was BJ that said to me that there are people moving in and out of Weathersfield every day these days.
Yeah,
And I noticed the same thing happened in Heartland.
We just got new neighbors. I think they have a kid in every grade of high school, and maybe even an 8th grader. And that's 5 right there.
Yeah. So if I had to guess, Ed's absolutely right that 1,571,086 is wrong. That it's not the actual. It's what we budgeted, and we got a bunch of kids that moved in. So my guess is it's not a $400,000 increase, actual to budget, but budget to budget it is. And I'll tell you, people are moving. People are finding they want to come north, for a lot of reasons. COVID safety is not the least of which, and they also like they want to come to a choice district, and that is a cost. We've talked about this before. You can't control. It is what it is.
So I know. Go ahead, Ed.
I was just going to say that the question that I just heard was what are we going to do? Like, how many students are there currently? And if I take these numbers and I take out, so we just confirmed there's 102. If I take a look at what we have right now, it's 94. So there was an increase.
Yeah. So you mean we budgeted 94?
No, I'm saying that right now with Lori's numbers, there's 94.
Okay, I see.
Okay. So if I were to take a look, what I asked Lori for was all the vouchers 9 through 12. She gave me the vouchers 9 through 12. I then took those names and addresses and I turned around and I said, all right, who's the 12th graders? I took the 12th graders off.
That's right.
Right. Then I took the counts that BJ gave me for the 21 students in the 8th grade right now, and I added them to that list. And that's how I came up with the numbers.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. So Ed, I do want to stand corrected on my memory and some numbers. You'll take great joy in this. I was really off, but I think in deference to the comment about building an assistant principal, I'm not opposed to it, but I do want you to know that last year the budget passed, and I'm looking at the numbers now, by 8 votes. 8. The year before it was 16 votes. The year before it was 23 votes. In FY18, it was 27 votes. And in FY17, it was 380 votes. And I think you know that I've spent a great deal of care in preparing the budgets over the year. And I've really tried to really level fund every year. I've really worked hard at that. And yet you can see the ability, I think, for folks to pay has gone down from 380 votes. That was the difference. The budget passed by that many, down to 8. And last year, that budget wasn't up much. So I just want to caution you, we should have the conversation about an assistant principal, but I also am a realist, and we most certainly want this budget to pass. So I think that needs to, those figures are, I say they're devastating, and I think we need to be mindful of them as we move forward in preparing the FY22 budget.
We always prepare a more detailed tuition list. I mean, that, we just don't have that tonight, but I just did quick math. If we've got 94 kids and I multiply that by an average tuition of, 19,000, somewhere between 18 and 20, because that's kind of where we are. It comes out 1,880,000 or 1,780,000. So that 1,571,000 is wrong. We've had kids move in. Robin said she's got neighbors with 4 high school kids. So, so I think that's what happens, and you can't control it. And once we affirm the residency, they're entitled to tuition wherever they want to go. And that's why some schools build a cushion in, but I don't like that when necessarily, but you can always expect you're going to get a couple more kids. It happens in Heartland as well.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult when you're comparing budget to budget. I mean, especially when it comes to tuition, because this time last year there was no pandemic, and this time last year there was most of the students that we were budgeting for had graduated from your high school, from your 8th grade. So, I mean, that whole dynamic has changed in the interim in the year.
Yeah.
So now in FY20, we've got a whole new group of people that have moved into town. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out as the year progresses. How much that 1.571 million is close to being budget.
Yeah, I had another question, sort of a comment. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it, Ed, but I know last year we ran up against that sort of multiplier effect that we had because of a property assessments were lower than the actual property sales as far as what the state valued the properties at. CLA, the CLA. Now, from what I'm hearing from people selling homes and realtors in the area is that the houses are going for crazy amounts of money. It's impossible for people to find places to rent. Like, they're just selling insanely. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be even worse this year, and if the state can do anything about it to help us with that.
The CLA is based off an appraisal, and generally an appraisal takes years. I mean, I don't know where you guys are in terms of when your last appraisal was, but I don't think it would be impacting this year, unless there was an appraisal that they've just completed, and it wouldn't take into account what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, they haven't done an appraisal, I think, in 4 years, I believe. I'd have to look. I have an email from one of the select board members, but I think it's 4 years.
Yeah, I don't see that CLA thing is always a wild card, as is the equalized pupil.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions for Ed or for Jean Marie?
I have another comment, just something for us to think about in the future as town meeting draws closer. I heard, I think it was on VPR maybe this morning or yesterday, that the state is considering doing universal mail-in ballots for town meeting. And
Yeah,
that
correct.
I don't know who was saying this. I don't know if it was the journalist commenting on it or if it was a state person commenting on it. But what they said was they think that the reason school budgets in Vermont have traditionally passed in general is because turnout is low on town meeting votes. So I wonder if the converse is true, and if that's a further warning for us that if ballots being mailed makes things easier, which makes turnout higher, does that mean turning the budget down is going to be more likely?
I think that's
I was having that conversation with David today.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so I think we'll have to do a good job of marketing and discussing and educating, which we've talked about in the past and done in the past, but I think we're going to have to do an even better job of it in order to overcome that possible dynamic.
Yeah. Well, if we're required by law to mail a ballot, I mean, I know that, this has been somewhat controversial given this last election, but clearly voter participation increased with that mail-in ballot. And I think that that caught the governor's attention. And I think that's where that discussion started, that maybe maybe we're onto something with getting more people involved by mailing them, a ballot, be it local or state ballot. So, and I think you're right. I think when, I know when, remember in Vermont, most budgets, and I'm talking about when I first came up here in the early 80s, most budgets were voted from the floor, right? And you went to town meeting and you voted your budget. And that was also criticized because there weren't enough people at those meetings. So then they went with Australian ballot. I don't know when Wethersfield moved to Australian ballot, but that got trickier for budgets because more people went to the polls. And I think if we do the mail-in, like Robin said, that'll be even more people, and we'd have to work hard, I think, to pass that budget. So we'll see what happens. That's a good point, though, Robin.
Yeah, and Robin, I don't know whether that would be in effect for this year.
Good question.
That's the way I heard it. I heard it in terms of the context of the pandemic, that like we might as well plan ahead. The pandemic could still be here in March. People won't want to go stand in line and be cold and social distance, and town meeting might not even be able to be held in the traditional way in person.
Yeah.
So that's the way I interpreted it as for this coming year.
Yeah. So normally what we do is we this is November, and I think Gene and BJ and Ed, everybody worked hard to get this out tonight. It's in a very preliminary draft form. I think we've had some good conversations, some good ideas. I think the next step would be, to bring this back in December. We still won't have all the tax information in December, but it's a chance to really tighten it up, for everybody to work on those numbers that are, can be sometimes at this stage of the ballgame a little squishy. And then it would also be a chance to look at the budget with an assistant principal and then without an assistant principal. I think, Robin, you asked what the average cost would be. I think with benefits, you'd probably have to plan in the 70 to 80,000 range, probably. I think that's the range.
I just priced one out, or actually, I had another business manager call me. It was about 102,000 with benefits.
That was for assistant principal or principal?
Yes.
Assistant.
The question came up in a VASMO meeting, and we were tasked with figuring that out. That's for somebody with the experience that you need, and plus, I think the salary was like 83 with medical and all the other benefits. It was about 102,000.
Yeah. So by the time
and I think, Gene, what are you making, Gene? Or,
Not that much, Ed.
No. Well, Gene's right, though, that I think that when we've talked about this on the search committee, that she's got 40 plus years of experience. I think her salary is at the top of the game, and that's not going to be the case with the new hire. So I don't know how much we'll save, but I think there will be some savings there. So we need to keep that in mind. But
David, I have a recommendation. So I think the next time we meet will be a month from today. And I think it would be great if we could devote the board meeting just to budget. And this will give us time to, look at that assistant principalship and do it, maybe what it would look like, what it wouldn't. I don't know that Ed will have a lot more information, because typically what happens is we really start getting things like that second or third week in December. Then we get together around the 1st of January, because we do have to go to print. If I'm not mistaken, BJ, help me. I think it's January 16th or somewhere around there.
it's middle to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, middle to the end.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is we've got to remember, and I don't know whether or not we got people interested in the BAC. Does anybody know that? Did we get some BAC members volunteering? BJ, do you know? BJ's holding up one finger. So that's
just one.
Just one. So what might, I like Gene's idea. I think what might be good is to dedicate that December meeting just to budget. We did this one year where we had a joint meeting of those interested in the Budget Advisory Committee and the board together, sitting down and really looking at that and having conversations like, do we want an assistant principal, making sure that the numbers accurate with staffing patterns. And, there's not much in the world of school budgeting unless you go to salaries that you save a lot of money. We talk about that every year, but I think it would be good not to have a whole lot of other things on the agenda, but really work on trying to get right down to the final, so that we could finalize it, if not in December, in January.
Sounds good. Okay, the next item, we're done with the budget?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, the next item is to appoint the BAC, but as everyone just heard, we only have one person so far, so I think we need to redouble our efforts to try to get some more members before we do that. I don't know, do we want to appoint a BAC before our December meeting? Like, should we kind of figure that we're going to have like a little small meeting to appoint the BAC before our next meeting? Or can we do that just at the beginning of next meeting?
Yeah, we could do it at the beginning. You could do it at the beginning, yeah. And I know BJ just sent out a notice to the principal search committee. That's 21 people, probably 12 to 15 of those are community members, and they're very
it's going out, David, it's going out again in my Thursday newsletter. It's because we don't have school Friday, and I've already written that. So yeah, we're going to get it out there again, see if we can entice some people to play with numbers with us.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I think that in this COVID environment, people are being careful, and I don't think that's surprising. And even though we could do, it's virtual, we'll be virtual. We can update that, whoever wants to be updated virtually, but I still think people are they're immersed in sort of this whole environment, and doing a budget on a cold December night isn't exciting a whole lot of people. But I think
I do know that there are some people in town that because of the virtual meetings, they don't have the the computer access to attend these, so it's hard for some people to volunteer to be on something that's going to have to be online.
Yeah. But again, you've had good attendance at your board meetings. I think if we dedicate that December meeting to budget, and we take, there's 2 BAC members or 3 BAC members, we invite them to that meeting and we go at it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the committee representative appointments, and I think we're gonna do that in executive session because you're talking about Sean's
Replacement, yeah, and also we want to update negotiations, and also when you're talking about personalities, it's good to do that in executive session.
So the next item up for discussion is a grant award from Melissa Cole. Is there somebody that wants to present that?
I'll be happy to present that. So Melissa wanted to have more second step program materials. She noticed when she inventoried the second step, which is a fantastic, it's really a K-5 program, but it also is a resource for K-8. And in the past, we've had the guidance counselor push in. I know she's pushing in right now in some of the classrooms, and for some reason, the materials were missing. So she wrote a grant. It's a foundation that prefers that we not use their names publicly, but they awarded her $4,000. She's very excited about ordering materials, but as you know, all grants have to be approved by the board before we can, at least that's been the past practice, before we can accept it. So I'm here on Melissa Cole's behalf, asking if the board would approve a $4,000 grant from an anonymous grant funding source.
Jean Marie, are there any stipulations with that grant?
A little bit. We actually have many that have grants from this particular funding source, and you approved some of them, I think, last month. Nothing that's insurmountable. It's really easy peasy.
Okay. Can I make a motion that we
Yeah.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve this?
Also move.
Okay.
Second.
Mark moved, Robin seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay.
Sounds unanimous.
Yep, unanimous. Okay, so we'll move on. I'm wondering, does the board ever like thank these people, or does Melissa take care of thanking the people? Like, is there anything we can do?
Yeah, she'll write.
We'll make sure that happens.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is winter sports update. Who's going to do that?
Yeah, and I can take this, and then Jean, feel free to speak up. And Jessica, I think I saw Jessica's on the line as well. Yeah, there she is. Right. So first of all, thanks to Jessica for a good fall sports season. It's just a tough environment to do all of this stuff and to try to make it work. And basically, I think the kids were very cooperative. The parents were very cooperative, and there were very few flukes. But now it gets more complicated because we're moving inside. We have the numbers in Vermont and quite frankly in New England don't look good. They're increasing, somewhat, and again, it's exponentially for Vermont. So when you double in Vermont, you go from 40 to 80, whereas this is not New York City. But the bottom line is you're still doubling cases. So we're trying to tread very carefully on winter sports. And I know that the staff, and there are several staff members, including our nurse, Emily, is on this at this meeting tonight. We're trying to go cautiously. The Agency of Education, in partnership with the Vermont Principals Association, issued some guidance, and quite frankly, I don't even know if we've got the official written guidance yet. But I know that I don't think we do. I think it's still, and I think part of what's holding them up is the fact that they're watching these numbers increase in Vermont, and they're having second thoughts about some of the initial guidance. But anyhow, the guidance that we got by word of mouth was that at the high school level, which is where most of those competitive sports really live, not that we want to take away from our middle school kids or even our elementary kids, but at the high school level, because you've got, especially in basketball in Vermont, I refereed varsity basketball for 18 years. It's a big deal in Vermont, and it's what kind of keeps people busy in Vermont in the wintertime. And the initial advice or guidance was that there won't be any spectators even if we have a sports season. So that's going to be a bummer for people who used to use the basketball season as a way to get out. But there's not much getting out of the house, if you will. And as far as the teams and coaches, they said the recommendation or the guideline was that on November 30th, you could start some level of high school practices and middle school too, because VPA controls middle school. But after talking to our reopening team and meeting with our school nurses, I just still want to err on the side of caution. We're going to be right in the middle of travel season with Thanksgiving and Christmas, where I think people are trying to control their travel, but you can't always do that. And we're going to watch these numbers. And what I've said to date is that we are not going to make a commitment to November 30th. We're going to wait and see what happens. And if they keep going in this direction, my guess is we're probably not going to do anything until after the holidays are over, which would put us into January. And that's at the high school level as well as the middle school level. I know a lot of districts have already said we're not going to do any K-6 at all. We're just not going to get those little kids in a gymnasium. Now, I'm not saying that that's an official decision, but I'm just talking to my colleagues in the south of Vermont, and that's what they're saying. They are trying to be open to 7 through 12. And I think that we will, in consultation with Jessica and the school nurses and Jean Marie, we'll make that decision as we as we move along. And I know this is disappointing for a lot of people, but I think sports, as important as it is in Vermont, we have to keep in mind that we're also still in pod arrangements in school. We're still masked and distanced at school. We still can't have a theater program. We can't have a music program. We can't have a band program. So I think it's unfair and equitable to just say, because sports tends to reign, and I, like I said, refereed 18 years of varsity basketball. I played sports in high school. I'm not anti-sports. I'm just pro-safety. And I think that's really the critical piece here, is being safe. So I think that we'll get the official guidance soon. We'll sit with we have a committee made up of the athletic directors and a couple of the principals, and we'll consult the school nurses, and we'll make a decision. But I think if you were thinking of what should you be planning for, I think you should be planning for, not much happening during the holiday season between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then we'll reassess in January. And I don't know, Jessica, if you want to add to that. You and I exchanged a couple of emails, but and you seemed pretty supportive of that right now.
Yeah, I'm supportive. Hi, everybody. I'm supportive of holding off until January. My only concern really is that for K through 6, area rec centers are opening sports. Springfield,
Correct.
Chester, others. So we have to release our kids to go play there if we are not going to host sports. And I think that that's opening up a can of worms with, we're trying to do as much as we can to control our pods and our kids and commingling and everything, but we open it up to go play at Springfield and they have 55 kids playing basketball. Then that's where my concern comes in, is that the K through 6 kids can go play at area rec centers and play with whoever they want to play with from area schools instead of keeping it in-house.
Yeah.
And I think that is okay. I've already had multiple parents email me asking, when are you going to release us? We've heard we're not having sports. So I'm waiting to see if we go ahead and release those kids, or if we say, we're hopeful to have sports, will you hold off? We're asking you to hold off, but I don't know what the proper protocol or what we should do on that. And to me, that seems more dangerous than having it in-house, but it all seems a little bit scary for both sides.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jessica. I think that's a valid point, and I think that it's going to be very difficult, and you just said it, to contain the kids who are really avid sports folks who want to go. We have kids right now, even though we can't have music program and theater and dance, we've got people trucking over to Claremont for dance lessons and for instrumental lessons. And, I get that. I see it happening in all 3 of our districts and 4 of our towns. Kids will access what they need to access, and it's tough to control. I think they're just going to have to realize, though, that certainly if they go out of state, they're going to be into that quarantine mode. If they stay in the state and go to either Windsor or Springfield or some other place like that, I guess that's okay. I think I would ask them to hold off for a little while longer, and let's get the guidance. And but I think that there's a general sense, and Jean, correct me if I'm wrong, that all of the principals, Windsor, Heartland, and Wethersfield, all said that given the way the numbers are climbing, they really don't want to open their gyms up for indoor recreation for at least K to 6. I think middle school and high school we're still debating, but I think it's a good point, Jessica, and it's going to be hard to control it, and it's going to be tough to bring them back, but at some point. But I think that's kind of where we are at this point.
I do want to mention too that it's multi-layered. For example, our gym right now is a classroom. So if there are kids in there at night, who's coming back in to clean and disinfect? Because let me tell you, we've been religious and faithful about that. The other thing is we've kept our 7th and 8th graders apart. And suddenly they're going to be playing side by side with masks in a gym with no windows. So, and David, you're absolutely right. It was a great debate at the administrative team level, and we were all very clear about how we felt. We have worked so hard to keep our kids safe, to keep our faculty and staff safe. It's just not a risk right now. The numbers, COVID numbers are blowing up. And even last week when we had this conversation, the numbers were on the rise. It doesn't mean we won't be open to it. I think that's what we agreed, David, that we would all be open once the first of the year came. But we are really clear what that looks like right now.
Well, we've already had two districts. I'm sure people are paying attention. I knew this was going to happen, but we've already had two districts, one pretty close to us, that has said they're going to shut down on the 23rd, and they're not going to open up again until January 11th. It's all going to be remote instruction. And don't be surprised if we see more of that. I think the reason why we're not talking about that right now is because we've been pretty darn safe, and we've been keeping kids in pods. And I tell you, the kids are doing a great job, and so are the teachers and the administrators. And we just don't want to mess that up. But I will, and I see Robin's hand too, and I don't know if you can see everybody or not, but Jessica, we'll certainly, when the guidelines come in, we'll invite you to that, to that meeting, and we'll have that conversation. I think we do have one principal on that team, but I'll certainly let you know, Jean, so you can be part of that.
Christine is our rep. Yeah.
Okay, Christine goes to that, and we'll, because we did a handbook for the fall, we'll talk about the winter and see where we are. And I feel terrible because it's just one of the hazards of where we are now. And I saw Robin's hand up. I'm hoping she's going to ask what I think she's going to ask, but any kind of activities that can be done safely outside.
I'm so predictable.
Yeah, you are predictable, Robin.
This is coming from someone who, I'm a huge fan of pods and keeping kids safe and separate, and we've worked so hard on that. And I, at the same time, hear what Jessica is saying about the pods are going to self-destruct by people going somewhere else. And that's exactly what we don't want. And I'm not a basketball player. I grew up playing hockey. And yes, hockey rinks are a little bit plush these days. But when I was growing up in Vermont, we played a lot of hockey outside where it's really cold, and we survived. And my question is, why don't you play basketball outside? I mean, I've also been on the situation where in April in Vermont, we were shoveling snow off the tennis courts so we could play tennis. So why not get really warmed up by shoveling snow off the basketball court and playing basketball outside? And you'd have different attire, but you'd be with your pod and you'd be in fresh air.
Yeah, I love that idea, Robin. I've actually thought of that, and also other just brainstorming about how we can keep the kids active, maybe not necessarily basketball, but
outside,
outdoor kickball in the snow. I mean, you can play kickball in the snow with snowshoes, things like that. That's night, later, the after school, things like that they're still looking for. And then that way it keeps them active, keeps them moving. And they're not going to area schools to play basketball yet.
The governor announced today that there'll be no gatherings of more than 10.
Was that inside or outside, Jean? Do you know? Did he say?
No gatherings. He said no gatherings more than 10.
Boy, he's getting to be a curmudgeon after we elected him, huh? That's just not right. Robin, what about, and Jean, have you talked at all about the ski program for the winter? Is that off the table, on the table?
That wasn't a part of the AD's responsibility. That was private. And It was done, actually, Robin and her husband volunteered that. So it didn't go through the AD.
Okay. And so, Robin, is there any thought about that this winter or no?
Yes, definitely. So the detail on that is that we've actually handed it off. Colin and I have handed it off to Sean and Ashley to take over at their property, and they have a wonderful property and are connected to the vast trails. So that should even add and enhance, the capability of that program. And so they are pumped and ready to have it. And they also have more flexibility than Colin and I had in terms of having it in the middle of the day, which is now the new end of the school day. Whereas Colin and I didn't have the flexibility to start it until 3 p.m. or later. So yeah, I would defer to Sean and Ashley to talk about that, but we've had brief conversations about the fact that they that we anticipate more kids being interested just because people are looking for that extra care for their kids and because of less just sports availability. I do still think that there's the diehard basketball people who, you know, and we've had some of them too that they've been like, oh yeah, we'll ski too on your team, and they don't because they're diehard basketball people. So I think that there's some that you're just not gonna entice away to other sports. They're gonna go to the places if they don't have a Weathersfield. And so I'm still on the 5-on-5. That's 10 people.
Yeah, get them
Coaches,
outside. Yeah,
outside.
Well, you know, that might be one of the things, you know, that we talk about in that committee, right? We kind of get an idea of what, you know, what courts could we keep clean? What, you know, what would that look like? I mean, I'm certainly not opposed to it, and I think getting kids outside is a great idea. And I also agree with what you said, Jessica, that, you know, if we can keep them closer to home, that's better. I mean, once they start to go out to these rec centers, I mean, you know, the bottom line is a lot of them are young and it's hard to control them anyhow. As I said, the dance lessons and gymnastics, and, you know, I think, you know, parents have kept their kids as active as they possibly can. But, you know, maybe we can look at that, Robin. I think that's not a terrible suggestion. I think that, you know, it just might be a question of, you know, where and how, but that might be a good conversation for the committee. And if the weather continues to cooperate, and I don't want to jinx this in any way, shape or form, but if the weather continues to cooperate like it has in November, you know, then who knows, you know, I mean, it's, you know, I agree, you can get outside in 30-degree weather and play basketball. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. And I think, Gene, you've still got, and I see teachers on the line too, but I think teachers are still taking kids out, right? Especially on these beautiful days. But the plan is to get kids out in the winter too, and that's good for them. But you know, I appreciate your understanding, Jessica, and we'll keep you in the loop, and then we'll keep reporting back to this board in terms of where we are. I'm just hoping we can stay in school and keep having school between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The only other thing, I don't think we have, we don't have a COVID update on this agenda, right? But one of the things I will say is that we've got a wonderful partnership with Mount Scottney Hospital, and what we're going to do for Thanksgiving is this is for staff, right? Because it's adult transmission we worry about the most. Not that we don't worry about kids, but adults tend to transmit this faster than kids. So with staff travel, we know that there will be some people who will be entertaining and some people who will be traveling. We're getting a survey of those folks now. And thanks to Emily Stevens and the nurses, they've worked out an arrangement with Mount Scottney where any staff that do travel to a red or yellow zone, and quite frankly, everything's becoming a red and yellow zone right now, that Mount Scottney has said they'll do a drive-through clinic at the end of that remote week, so that we'll test folks on, I think it's either, Emily can correct me, Friday or Saturday, but we'll have those results back by Sunday, so people will know that they're okay to come back to school on that following Monday. So again, it's about safety. It's been tricky, but I'll tell you, our community has been great, and they've been understanding, teachers, kids, and I think it's why, you know, we've only had really 2 cases, but I guess you could say 3. You know, one was a presumptive positive, but I think people have gone way out of their way to make this work. And I think we just need to do everything we can in these winter months to be careful and do as much as we can outside.
Okay. Is that everything for sports then?
I think so for now, Ann.
All right. Next up on the agenda is the principal report from the birthday girl.
The birthday girl does not have a report because she's focused on budget, except to say, you know, we have 6 new staff, and 4 of them will have completed their first evaluation by next week. So I have 1 done and 2 scheduled for Thursday, 1 next week. And then the 2 new special educators, Katie and I are working together. So I'll be evaluating them, working with students in December. And then Katie will come in and evaluate them running a meeting. So we're right on target in terms of evaluating new staff. I'm really proud of our kids and our families. You know, our kids were without school for 6 months. And like, you know, you get all, we have a variety of kids and a variety of energy levels. And I am just amazed at how few problems that I deal with in terms of discipline and behavior. Kids are glad to be back. They're working hard. My teachers are working very hard and making sure, and I gotta be frank with you, I dreaded the track my progress scores. I thought, well, you know, as a nation, we've all said, hey, don't expect much. They weren't in school. Our track my progress scores were really good. I was amazed. And now we just heard they're giving the Vermont Science Assessment and SBAC. And the window is March 16th until May 28th. So we'll be scheduling those. I'm just really pleased. I'm not going to tell you I'm not tired. You can hear it from my voice. That's a dead giveaway for me. We had a racial equity policy meeting that went pretty late last night. So we're tired. I think the administrative team, probably David too, is very tired. And then tonight budget. But even though we're tired, it's a good feeling. Our kids have been healthy and safe. Our teachers are taking kids outside minimally once a day. Minimally once a day. I know a lot of teachers teach out there quite a bit of their day. And so they've been just really devoted to doing the right thing. And it looks different. You know, I come from a big family, 12 brothers and sisters, and they often ask me, so what does education look like this year? I can't even describe it. It's so different. It's certainly nothing I trained for. Every aspect of it looks different. And, you know, BJ and I are a pretty tight team, and we've got quite a partner in Carrie Dewell. She is outstanding. So the three of us look at each other some days and say, we're just exhausted because it is different. It's not the same, and it takes a different level of commitment and energy and patience. And I'm not complaining. I'm really not. But if we're feeling it, what do you think the kids are feeling? What do you think our faculty and staff are feeling? And the other thing is, I'm amazed at the parents who come every day. I get positive emails more this year than I've ever gotten. And, you know, I'm feeling like it's such a different world that we live in. Parents are always, you know, thanks for not just me, everybody being outside. Thanks for BJ directing traffic. It's nice to see Brian working outside. I love the way they're coming in different doors. My kids tell me they feel safe in school. And families, a lot of families, I would say, I think today I gave a number about 65, I think it's 65 kids are brought to and from school by their parents. What an interruption to their day. Yet I don't hear complaints. I hear really positive things. So I just wanted to share that with you because that's just wonderful, I think.
That is great. Yeah, I actually heard from I didn't hear, Daxton heard from the middle school teacher that the Wethersfield kids are great. So just a good thing for the Wethersfield kids. She said they're all awesome.
It's true.
That's on the remote. If anybody doesn't know, that's the remote program. And also I wanted to thank Craig for for his delicious meals that he prepares and that are sent out to the remote kids as well. It's a weight off of my shoulders not to have to worry about what my kids are getting into and making their own lunches. I know they're getting something good that Craig has made, so it's very nice. I guess next up is the superintendent report.
Yeah, mine's going to be pretty quick because, again, we've been immersed in budget, but you know, we do have parent conference week coming up, and also on the 23rd and 24th, that's going to be professional development time, and we've been putting a lot of time into planning for that because that's going to give teachers some time to continue to work on some of this interdisciplinary work and also to get ready for that remote week. So it's going to be a lot of building-based, teacher-based, pod-based work, and I think it'll be a good break for them entering into the Thanksgiving recess. And then, as I said, we have that remote week afterwards, followed by that testing site. Again, we're just going to have to keep watching, keep watching those numbers and hope that we can get them, to flatline or stabilize a bit. But I think that the work that's gone on SU-wide with that strategic plan that we talked about tonight, and Jean just mentioned, we also are kicking off that anti-racism task force. I think that that's very that's very important for our communities, all 4 of our communities, and I think that that's going to be a good opportunity for us to stop and take a look at some of our culture and habits and climate around, just in general, how we treat our minorities. And again, it's going to be based on sort of that the emphasis around race, but we also, continue to deal with other minority groups in our building. We know that we have, even in our middle school, our LGBTQ community and kids that are really struggling with their identity. I think schools have to make all kids feel safe. That's the bottom line. And that's going to be the emphasis of this committee. We already talked about the principal search committee, but that's going well. And I really want to hats off to BJ for all the work she's putting into that from a clerical standpoint. She keeps us organized and moving forward. But I think everybody's done a great job. And I've been told from every single principal and assistant principal in our district that our office referrals and behavior reports are down anywhere from 70 to 80%. Bullying and harassment complaints are almost non-existent. I think part of that's the way we're set up, and I think we got to learn some lessons from the way we're set up, because I think the fact that we're transitioning kids a lot less, and we're also in these pods where teachers are building, great relationships with smaller groups of kids. And I know that the principals have talked about, and the union and the teachers, if there's some ways that we can preserve some of this, because it does feel a lot safer when you walk in those buildings, and the data shows it from the referrals. So I think everybody can be proud of that work. And once this pandemic is over, if it's ever over, we should think about how we organize our schools and our kids in our classes, because we've had some great results from some of this, including the place-based and outdoor education pieces. I think that, why would we stop that just because the pandemic is over? So, but that's it for me, Anne Marie.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I had heard that the more energy you get out of the kids, by making them run around and stuff, the less trouble they get into in school. So I think that's definitely a benefit. Next item on the agenda is items for action. I don't think we have anything that we didn't do already, except for what we're going to be working on in an executive session. Correct?
Correct. I think you took care of it all.
Okay. Setting the next agenda. Should we do that now, or?
Yeah, that's a good idea. And the date of the next meeting.
That was going to be a budget meeting, correct?
I think we should do mostly budget on there. We might have a couple of other things that come up, but I'm looking at this, the second, what have we been doing? The second Tuesday, would be yes. December 8th. And I think, believe it or not, I think that's it, December 8th.
I think we'd want a sports check-in, just because there might be more guidance then, and I don't know.
I was gonna say, and definitely a COVID update.
And maybe and maybe an appointment of a new board member might be something to just remind us to keep that on there. Mm-hmm. I'll send that invitation out tonight just so we've got it. And people have been going to the website. We had 28, almost 29, I think 29 people at one point tonight.
And just a reminder that our meetings are at 6 o'clock now. So when you post that, it's December 8th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Is that everything, or does anyone have anything else to add?
Anne Marie, I just have a question.
Okay.
This is BJ.
BJ.
If people are interested in serving on the board now, how should they go about that now that there's a vacancy?
They should call you. And then you can collect the applications for us, and I guess we'll have an interview process per usual, but I guess it'll be a online event.
Yeah, I think we should put it out there. Gene, you and I can talk about that. We can get that out when we get out the BAC notification, and then letters of interest can come back
tonight. So I'll put it right in my newspaper because I'm getting that ready for tomorrow. So what I'll write is that if you're interested, to write a letter of interest to the board, but send it to BJ. Is that what you'd like?
Yes, and then if BJ could forward those on to the board members, that'd be awesome.
I'll do that tonight before I go to bed.
I did already post it on Facebook when I was mentioning about anticipated board opening, but I guess nobody called BJ yet, so. All right, do we have any motions to enter into executive session?
I have a question. Will you need me there, or is this something you can do without me?
No, I think we're okay, Gene.
Yeah. You go night nights.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Thank you
birthday.
for working the budget.
What'd you say, Mark?
Thank you to Jean Marie for all the hard work on the budget. It's really
Yeah.
helpful to have it all laid out like that. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. And BJ and I were a team. We worked together on that.
Yeah.
And Ed too. Ed worked with us too.
Great. Okay. Anybody else have anything else to say before we go into executive session?
Did we have a motion? I didn't see a motion, but.
No, we don't have a motion yet.
I'll move to go into executive session at
Well, second.
7:55.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I guess we're going to executive session.
Yeah, so just the board members and I will hang out.
Okay, we're called back into session at 8:20.
So you'll need a motion to open.
Would anyone like to make a motion to name a member to the SU board?
I move to appoint Kristen Brousseau to the SU board.
Anyone second?
Mark will second.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Do I vote on that? Aye.
Yes, you do, Chris.
Okay,
Yeah. She's gonna vote no.
Just kidding.
Okay, and then does anyone want to make a motion to nominate a new board chair?
I move to nominate Anne Marie Redmond as board chair.
I will second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, that passed as well.
That's great. Congratulations. Anne Marie. I want you to know it really is good though, in a sense, because we are incredibly politically correct in this Upper Valley, because now all of our board chairs are women, and Elizabeth, Amy, Nikki Buck, and Anne Marie, and I think that's kind of a tribute. If you look around the state and you go to these BSBA conferences, a lot of the chairs are men. So that's good. I think that's great. As a father of 6 daughters, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how are you still alive?
I keep trying to get one of them to run for a school board or something, because I want them to suffer along with me. I think we're good then. And Mark, you'll take on the negotiating committee. I don't think that has to be an official appointment. And I think we're
And I'll
good.
do the principal search committee.
Yeah, and you're going to do the principal search committee. So I'll reach out to BJ and make sure she puts you on that list. And we'll bring you up to speed on that too, because we have a meeting Thursday night on that one. So she'll
I think
say,
my dad is on that one too, so I'm sure.
oh yeah, oh God, yeah. Now,
Whether I ask for it or not.
that's good. There's a match made in heaven right there. I like that. That's good. Luckily,
Do I have
we're
any motion to adjourn?
yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
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 All
Okay,
right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.